The colony of Epsilon. 9 was burning. Smoke rose in thick black clouds that twisted like living things, curling and choking the air. The screams of the wounded and the shriek of metal tearing apart echoed across the settlement. Commander Lyra Vance's boots pounded the molten dirt as she sprinted toward the supply station, the ground vibrating under the feet of fallen structures. The alien raiders had struck without warning, their weapons cutting through the colony's defenses like knives through paper. Heat from the fires licked her armor, and sparks rained down from overhead beams that groaned before crashing to the ground. Lyra's mind was clear, razor sharp, despite the chaos around her. She knew the station held her cadets, young trainees barely out of their first rotation. 3 of them had been trapped when a ceiling collapsed. She could not leave them behind. The thought of failure did not exist in her mind, only the path forward. She ducked under a falling panel, rolling past molten metal that hissed on contact with the dirt. She reached the first cadet, a young boy named Ren, who was pinned beneath a charred beam. "Hold on, Ren! I've got you!" she shouted over the roar of flames. Lyra assessed the beam, calculating the angle of lift. Her hands burned as she gripped the metal, straining against its weight. She shifted her body, using her knees to push, and finally, with a grunt, the beam toppled to the side. Ren gasped, coughing, smoke filling his lungs. Lyra wrapped his arm over her shoulder. He was light, barely more than a child, but even the smallest movement had to be precise. She darted past a wall of fire, jumping over a puddle of molten coolant that hissed as she landed. Ahead, the other cadets lay under wreckage. One of them, Mara, had her leg trapped beneath a fallen support column. Lyra's jaw tightened. Time was short, the fire spread quickly, and every second could mean death. She dragged Ren behind a makeshift barricade and turned back to Mara. Flames curled around the edges of the building, and the heat was almost unbearable. Lyra ignored it, sliding under a beam and bracing her shoulder against the column. She heaved, muscles screaming, and lifted the weight enough to pull Mara free. She wrapped her arms around the girl and began moving toward an exit.
The 3rd cadet, Kian, was near the center of the station.
Smoke was thick there, blackening the air until it felt like swimming through darkness. Lyra could barely see, but she heard the boy's coughing, the desperate rhythm of his breathing. She pushed forward, kicking debris aside. Sparks rained from above, and she ducked under a fallen girder. Kian was pinned beneath a half-collapsed wall of crates. Lyra grabbed his arms, counting the seconds, planning her movement. She leveraged herself against the crates, pushing with every ounce of strength. The wall shifted slightly, then, finally, gave way. Kian coughed, tears streaming down his soot-streaked face, and she pulled him into her embrace. The 3 of them were together now, but the danger had not passed. The raiders were still attacking, firing beams that sliced through walls, sending showers of sparks into the inferno. Lyra's suit sensors screamed warnings. Heat levels were reaching critical, structural integrity was failing, and the air was becoming toxic. She ignored the alerts, focusing on each step, each movement, calculating the safest path through collapsing corridors. Every instinct she had was engaged. She became a force of will, moving like a shadow through the flames. She had learned long ago that panic was a luxury humans could not afford. In battle, hesitation was death. Every movement had to be deliberate, precise. She counted steps, measured distances, and predicted how structures would fall. When a ceiling cracked above, she pushed the cadets forward, rolling just in time as the beams fell with a deafening crash. She winced at the sound, but there was no time to dwell on it. The fires were everywhere, licking walls, twisting through corridors, consuming oxygen. At one point, they reached a hall filled with chemical fires that sparked and popped. The heat was unbearable. Lyra looked around, spotting a beam that had fallen diagonally, forming a makeshift bridge. Without hesitation, she lifted Kian over the edge and helped him across. Then she supported Mara, and finally, she carried Ren with one arm while balancing herself. Sparks jumped from the molten floor, some landing on her suit, burning through the material, but she ignored the pain. She could feel the heat searing her skin beneath the armor, yet she pressed on. Finally, she saw the exit. A wall of flames barred the way, thick and undulating like a living wall of fire. Lyra scanned quickly and spotted a ventilation shaft that had partially collapsed but still offered a crawl space. She directed the cadets, "This way! Stay low and follow me." One by one, they crawled through the narrow opening, twisting, turning, dragging themselves past sharp metal edges. Lyra went last, making sure none were left behind. Her suit scraped against the metal, sparks flying, but she kept moving, her body a conduit for determination and focus. When they emerged on the other side, the colony defenders had begun to push back the raiders. Smoke still choked the air, but there was light now, a clear path to safety. Lyra collapsed against a wall, breathing heavily, her muscles trembling. The cadets were coughing, soot-streaked and terrified, but alive. She looked at them, relief flooding her chest. She had done what no one else could. She had dragged 3 fallen cadets past flames, through chaos and death, to safety. Yet even as she stood, victorious in a small way, she knew the fight was not over. The raiders had been pushed back for now, but the colony was scarred, buildings reduced to rubble, lives altered forever. Lyra's heart ached for the destruction around her, for the families who had lost everything. Still, she could not dwell. There would be time for grief later. Right now, the priority was the cadets, and the survival of everyone left. She checked each of them, making sure they could walk, that their injuries were stable. Kian winced, but nodded. Mara leaned heavily on Lyra for support. Ren's eyes were wide with shock, but he tried to smile. Lyra gave them a firm nod. "You're safe now. Just stay close, and we'll get through this." Her voice was calm, steady, the anchor they needed. Then everything changed. A massive explosion shook the ground, sending a wave of heat over them. Lyra grabbed the cadlets, pulling them down as debris rained from above. She shielded them with her body, counting on her armor to absorb the worst. The force threw her to the ground, and the world went black. When she lost consciousness, she had no idea that cameras had captured every moment of her rescue, every detail. Her courage, her calculation, her refusal to abandon the cadets was streaming across human-controlled networks. Every eye that could see, from Earth to the outer colonies, would witness her actions. Unknown to her, humanity was taking note. In the silence of unconsciousness, Lyra drifted in a haze of heat and smoke, the cries of the cadets still echoing in her mind. But in that same instant, across light years of distance, signals recorded and preserved her bravery. Databanks began their silent work, compiling, analyzing, and preparing the story of a human who defied death and fire to save lives. And in the midst of the inferno, amidst falling beams and molten fire, Commander Lyra Vance had already begun her journey into legend, though she did not yet know it. Lyra woke to a soft hum and the sterile smell of the medical chamber. Her head throbbed, and a thin sheen of sweat clung to her face. For a moment, confusion clouded her mind, and she thought she was still in the flames of Epsilon 9. Then her eyes adjusted to the light, and she realized she was lying on a medical bed aboard a large, gleaming station. The walls glowed with panels of soft blue and white, and medical drones hovered silently, monitoring her vital signs. "Commander Vance?" a calm voice asked. Lyra turned her head to see a woman in uniform standing beside the bed. She had sharp eyes and a gentle expression, carrying a tablet that flashed with information.
"You're awake. We've been expecting you."
Lyra tried to sit up, but a dull ache ran through her body, and she had to lie back down.
"The cadets?" she asked, voice hoarse. "They're alive. We stabilized them." "You did well," the officer said. "Everyone is talking about what happened on Epsilon 9. Lyra frowned, still trying to process. She had done what any commander would do, she thought, but hearing it spoken like that made her feel uneasy. Talking about what? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The officer's expression softened. Commander, footage of your actions was recorded. You dragged 3 cadets through fire, debris, and collapse. The colonies and Earth Central Command have seen it. Humanity is calling you a hero. Lyra's stomach twisted. Hero? She remembered the smoke, the heat, the way she had carried Ren, Mara, and Kian. She had just been trying to survive, and to save them. The word hero felt heavy and strange on her tongue. She struggled to sit upright again, and the officer helped her gently. You should rest, but there is more. The Hero Archives are inscribing your story. It's already spreading across every colony. People are inspired by what you did. Young cadets are looking at your footage and seeing what humanity is capable of, even in impossible situations. Lyra felt a mix of pride and guilt. She had saved the cadets, yes, but what about the other colonists? How many had perished in the attack? She tried to push the thought away, focusing instead on the 3 cadets she had rescued. They were alive. That was enough for now. Medical drones checked her injuries carefully. Burns had blistered her arms, and minor fractures ran along her ribs. Lyra winced at the pain, but did not cry out. She had endured worse. The officers explained that her suit had saved her life, absorbing much of the heat and impact. Without it, she might have perished along with the station. While she recovered, Lyra was introduced to other people who had watched her actions. Historians, journalists, and AI archivists crowded into the chamber. Some asked questions, wanting to understand her decision-making, her timing, her courage. Lyra answered simply, without embellishment. I didn't think, she said. I just acted. I couldn't leave them behind. I wouldn't. Her words resonated more than she realized. The AI systems logged every word, every motion she had made, and compiled them into narrative form for the Hero Archives. Across the stars, data packets carrying her story traveled at near light speed to colonies and outposts. Lyra was unaware that humans thousands of light years away were reading her actions, learning from them, inspired to be bold and selfless. In the following days, Lyra watched as her story began to spread in real time. Holo displays in the medical station showed her actions repeated, frame by frame, annotated with insights into her tactics and improvisation. The cadets she had saved appeared beside her, their injuries healing, their faces lit with awe and relief. Ren, the youngest, looked up at her with wide eyes. "Commander, you really saved us, all of us," he whispered. Mara, her leg still in a temporary brace, nodded. "I thought we were gone. But you didn't leave anyone behind." Incredible, Commander. Lyra felt a lump in her throat. She had never sought praise, never wanted recognition. The thought that her actions were being admired across human space made her uncomfortable. She looked out a large observation window at the stars, stretching endlessly beyond the station. Epsilon... No. 9 was far below, a smoldering reminder of loss and courage intertwined. She thought about the colonies, the settlements, the millions of humans relying on courage, adaptability, and hope in a dangerous galaxy. And she realized something. Her story wasn't just about her. It was about what humans could do when nothing else seemed possible. As she recovered, Lyra began to notice subtle changes. Reports came in from other colonies. Alien scouts had been observing Epsilon, 9's defense. They had seen the humans' unexpected tactics, the improvisation, the courage displayed in the heat of battle. For all their technology, the aliens seemed unprepared for human unpredictability. Lyra's actions had sent ripples through the cosmos, attracting attention she could not yet fully understand. The news troubled her. Aliens rarely intervened directly, but when they did, It was with overwhelming force. And now, she realized, her rescue, the single act of courage, had not gone unnoticed. The aliens were studying humanity, trying to determine its limits. The thought made her pulse quicken. Humans had survived wars, disasters, and attacks, but facing a species with advanced weapons and rigid logic could be catastrophic. Yet she felt a strange confidence. Humans had survived because they adapted. They fought with ingenuity, courage, and heart, and she was proof of it. Her training intensified under the watchful eye of Earth's Central Command. While she healed, she was briefed on alien movements, defense strategies, and rapid response tactics. Each lesson reminded her that the galaxy was vast and unpredictable. Humans were small in comparison, yet when they refused to be predictable, they became powerful in ways machines and alien algorithms could not anticipate. Lyra began to train with the cadets she had saved. She knew they were inexperienced, yet full of potential. Together they practiced drills, improvised escape routes, and survival scenarios. She pushed them hard, but with care. Each time they completed a task, she reminded them, "You never know what will happen next. Be ready. Think. Act. Protect each other." One evening, as the stars shimmered beyond the observation deck, Lyra reflected on her story. The hero archives were filling with narratives, lessons, and simulations based on her actions. Young humans across the colonies were learning not just courage, but resourcefulness, improvisation, and the power of selflessness. Her heroism was no longer a single moment. It was becoming a blueprint for survival, a spark that would ignite countless others. A notification pinged. Lyra turned to see a report from intelligence analysts. The alien fleet near Epsilon 9 was mobilizing, responding not to humans' numerical strength, but to the unpredictable nature of their tactics. The aliens had assumed humans would be predictable, controlled, and organized in strict patterns. Lyra's actions had defied that assumption. They were now reassessing their plans. The weight of responsibility pressed on her shoulders. One rescue had become something larger. One act of courage had become a message to the galaxy. Humans were not to be underestimated. And while recognition from Earth and the colonies was new and strange to her, she realized that this attention could save lives. It could unite humans, prepare them for the unknown, and prove that adaptability and courage were humanity's greatest weapons. Lyra stood on the observation deck, her arms crossed, looking at the stars. The memory of flames and smoke still lingered in her mind, but now they were joined by something else. Hope. Every story she read from other colonies, every simulation in the hero archives, every young cadet inspired by her actions, became a reminder that humanity thrived on more than technology. It thrived on courage, ingenuity, and heart. "Commander, do you think we'll face them again?" he asked, nodding toward the dark expanse where intelligence suggested alien scouts were watching. Lyra crouched to meet his gaze. "Maybe. But if we do, we'll be ready." Not because we are perfect, but because we think, we adapt, and we never give up. That's what makes us human. Mara and Kian joined them, standing shoulder to shoulder. Together they watched the stars, each one a distant colony, each one filled with humans learning, preparing, and hoping. And Lyra felt something she had not allowed herself to feel in a long time. Purpose beyond survival. A mission larger than any single battle. The hero archives continued to update her story, but now she understood it was more than data, more than recognition. It was a reminder of what humans could do in impossible situations. It was a warning to those who might underestimate them. And it was a spark that could ignite courage across the galaxy. For the first time since Epsilon 9 burned, Lyra allowed herself a small smile. She was no longer just a commander. She was part of something larger. Humanity, with all its flaws, ingenuity, and heart, had been watching, learning, and adapting, and she had shown them the way. As the station's lights dimmed for the evening, Lyra turned to her cadets. "Rest tonight," she said softly. Tomorrow we prepare. Tomorrow we show the galaxy who we are. And somewhere far away, across countless stars and colonies, her story continued to inspire, teaching humans everywhere that courage, ingenuity, and selflessness could turn the tide of impossible battles. Humanity was watching, and humanity was ready. The alien fleet appeared on the edge of human-controlled space with quiet menace. Their ships were massive, glinting like dark jewels against the black canvas of the stars. They moved with precision, formation after formation, an overwhelming show of power. Intelligence reports streamed into the command station, where Lyra and her cadets now stood. The data painted a picture of confidence. The aliens assumed humans would be predictable, organized in rigid military patterns, and easy to anticipate. Lyra knew they were wrong. "Commander," one officer said, pointing to a holographic display of the fleet.
"They're expecting a standard defensive response. They've calculated every possible human maneuver."
Lyra narrowed her eyes. Good.
"Let them think they understand us. They'll learn soon enough that humans are never predictable." The cadets she had rescued, Ren, Mara, and Kian, stood behind her. Their training had progressed rapidly, guided by the lessons of Epsilon. 9 and the simulations she had supervised. They were no longer frightened children. They were quick-thinking, resourceful, and ready to act. Lyra felt a surge of pride as she watched them analyze the holograms, discussing strategy, improvising possibilities, and calculating risks. Humanity had always relied on adaptability, and these cadets embodied it. Lyra addressed the entire command team. "We are outnumbered, yes. Their ships are stronger, faster, and more numerous. But they rely on logic and predictability. We rely on heart, ingenuity, and the unexpected. We will use the chaos they cannot predict as our weapon." Orders were given. The colonies had been briefed. Defenses were prepared, but not in the usual grid formations. They were irregular, improvised, and designed to confuse. Mines were hidden behind asteroid belts. Drone swarms would simulate attacks from multiple directions, and decoy stations would mislead alien sensors. Humans were embracing unpredictability, and Lyra was at the center of it all. The first skirmish erupted near a mining outpost. Alien ships descended with sleek precision, weapons charging as if expecting the humans to scatter or surrender. But the humans did not panic. They had rehearsed, adapted, and prepared. Lyra's team led a small fleet through a narrow asteroid field, using debris as cover. Mines detonated in carefully timed sequences, knocking out several alien fighters before they could react. The aliens fired blindly, their calculations disrupted by the irregular formations. Ren maneuvered his craft through the chaos, eyes sharp and hands steady. "Commander, another wave coming from the left?" he shouted. Lyra nodded. "Use the debris. Lead them into the trap." She guided the young pilot with calm authority, her voice cutting through the roar of battle. Mara and Kian executed synchronized strikes on alien sensors, disrupting targeting systems. Each move was deliberate but unconventional. The aliens, trained to predict every action, found themselves reacting instead of acting. Humanity's improvisation was their weapon, and it was lethal. Amid the chaos, Lyra noticed the alien commander observing the battle, a ship larger and darker than the rest. The figure seemed intelligent, calculating, analyzing every human move. Lyra realized that this commander was trying to understand humans by observing them, but humans could not be reduced to simple patterns. Humans adapted, humans survived, and humans fought back when cornered. Lyra called a meeting with her strike team. "We need to hit their command ship," she said, pointing to the massive vessel on the hologram. "But we won't do it with brute force."
"We'll force them to make a mistake. They spend hours preparing."
Cadets adjusted their ships, reprogrammed drones, and tested improvised weapons. Lyra coordinated movements with precision, but allowed room for human intuition to guide decisions. Unlike the aliens, humans could act creatively in the moment, change tactics without hesitation, and exploit opportunities the enemy never expected. The decisive moment came when the human fleet lured a portion of the alien ships into a canyon of floating asteroids. Lyra led the attack, dodging falling debris and fire from alien guns. Mines exploded in waves, taking out enemy ships, one by one. She directed her cadets to flank the remaining vessels, creating confusion and exploiting gaps in formation. The aliens, unable to predict human improvisation, began to falter. Lyra's heart pounded, but her mind remained sharp. She remembered every lesson from Epsilon 9, every improvisation that had saved lives in the fire. She realized the same principles applied on a larger scale: timing, observation, adaptation, and courage. The humans were not merely fighting ships, they were fighting with their humanity itself. The unpredictability, resourcefulness, and determination that no algorithm or calculation could anticipate. The alien commander, now directly engaged, shifted their tactics. A powerful wave of energy swept toward the human fleet, intending to crush resistance. Lyra calculated the trajectory instantly, signaling cadets to adjust their positions. They moved with synchronicity, weaving through the energy surge, using debris as shields, and turning a deadly attack into an opportunity to strike. Mara fired her improvised cannon, targeting the alien command ship's energy core. Kian coordinated drone swarms to create a diversion. Ren piloted a small craft directly into a weak point in the hull. The humans struck from unexpected angles, exploiting gaps and forcing the alien commander to react instead of control. A deafening explosion shook the battlefield. The alien command ship faltered, sending shockwaves through the remaining fleet. Alien ships scrambled, some retreating, some destroyed. The humans had turned the tide not by sheer firepower, but by unpredictability, coordination, and courage. Lyra's improvisation, the cadets' rapid learning, and the colony's ingenuity had combined into a force the aliens could not anticipate. As the battle quieted, Lyra surveyed the fleet. Casualties existed, but far fewer than expected. The colonies remained intact, and the cadets she had saved had become symbols of human resilience. Lyra felt a mix of relief and pride. She knew the fight was not over. These aliens would return, and the galaxy remained dangerous, but humanity had proven something critical. Even against overwhelming force, humans could survive, adapt, and prevail. In the aftermath, reports streamed in from colonies watching the battle unfold. Humans everywhere were inspired by what they had seen. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things, using their minds, their courage, and their hearts to face impossible odds. The hero archives updated in real time, chronicling Lyra's strategies, her leadership, and the cadets' actions. Across the galaxy, humans read the story, studied the tactics, and prepared for what might come next. Lyra stood on the observation deck, looking at the stars once more. The galaxy was vast, and dangers were many. But she felt a sense of confidence she had never known before. Humanity had something the aliens could not calculate: creativity, courage, and the ability to act unpredictably in the face of danger. And that made them powerful.
The cadets joined her silently. Ren looked at her with admiration.
"Commander, we did it," he said softly. Lyra shook her head, a small smile forming.
"No, Ren. They did it."
"All of us did it. Humans did it. We adapted. We fought. We survived. And we will keep doing it, no matter what comes next." Mara placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. "Do you think they'll come back?" Lyra's gaze returned to the dark expanse where the alien fleet had appeared.
Yes, and when they do, we'll be ready.
Not because we follow a script, but because we think, adapt, and refuse to be predictable. That is what makes humans dangerous. That is what makes us unstoppable. Kian nodded. "So this is just the beginning?" Lyra smiled. "The beginning of something greater. They've seen what we can do, and so have all the colonies. Ruidem. Humanity will not be underestimated again. As the stars twinkled in the distance, Lyra and her team began planning the next steps, repairing defenses, training cadets, and preparing the colonies for the inevitable return of the alien threat. But for now, they had a victory to celebrate. Small but meaningful. A victory born not of numbers, not of firepower, but of ingenuity, courage, and the human spirit. Across the galaxy, humans whispered the story of the battle, the tale of 3 cadets saved by a commander's courage and a fleet that turned the tide through unpredictability. The hero archives inscribed each detail, ensuring the legacy of bravery, ingenuity, and heart would inspire generations to come. Lyra's actions were no longer a single story. They were a lesson, a symbol, and a warning. The aliens had learned something too. Humans could not be calculated, could not be controlled, and could never be defeated by expectation alone. The unpredictability, the heart, and the courage of one species had turned the tide of a battle, and that knowledge would follow them across every star they traveled. Lyra turned to her cadets one last time before heading to the planning room. "Rest well," she said. "Tomorrow we prepare. Tomorrow we continue to prove that humans are more than they expect us to be. And we will keep proving it." And somewhere, far beyond the reach of the battle, humanity watched, learned, and prepared for the next challenge. Inspired by the courage of a single commander and the unpredictability that defined an entire species, the alien command ship hovered at the edge of human space, its shadow stretching across colonies like a warning. Lyra stood on the bridge of the main fleet, her eyes tracing the dark angular hull that seemed almost alive with menace. This was the final test, the culmination of every lesson, every improvisation, every risk she had ever taken. Humanity had survived battles before, but this confrontation would define how the galaxy remembered them. Her cadets, Ren, Mara, and Kian, stood beside her. They were no longer frightened children, but sharp, capable warriors, molded by fire, smoke, and chaos. Lyra met each of their eyes. "This is it," she said quietly. "Not because we have more ships or bigger guns, because we have what they cannot calculate. Our heart, our courage, and our ability to adapt. Stick with me. Trust yourselves. Trust each other." The alien commander's signal pulsed across the void, a challenge wrapped in digital precision. They were calm, cold, expecting humans to respond in predictable ways. Lyra smiled faintly. That expectation would be their undoing. She turned to her fleet. "We will not attack directly. We will force them to react, and when they make a mistake, we will strike." The humans launched in coordinated chaos. Small strike teams weaved through asteroid fields, drones fired in irregular patterns, and decoy ships lured enemy vessels into traps. The aliens responded with predictable calculations, firing where they expected humans to be, only to find empty space. Each misstep forced them to expend resources. Each hesitation revealed weaknesses. Lyra piloted a scout vessel herself, leading a small unit toward the alien command ship. Her sensors picked up the energy shields, the turrets, and the alien drones protecting the core. She analyzed every weak point in real time, adjusting course and signaling her cadets. Ren piloted a flanking vessel, weaving between asteroids to avoid detection. Mara controlled a swarm of drones, creating false targets and drawing fire away from Lyra's path. Kian prepared the final strike, monitoring energy flows and openings that only humans could see. The first wave of attacks began. Energy blasts ripped through the asteroid field, narrowly missing human vessels as debris exploded in every direction. Lyra's heart pounded, but she moved with precision, every maneuver deliberate. She recalled Epsilon 9, the fire, the smoke, the heat, the cadets she had saved. Every instinct, every lesson from that day guided her now. Survival depended on improvisation, courage, and unity. A massive beam fired from the alien command ship, cutting a path through the asteroid field. Lyra calculated the trajectory instantly, twisting her vessel through a narrow gap the edge of the beam scorching the hull. Sparks flew, but she pressed on. Behind her, the cadets followed, their movements perfectly timed with hers. The aliens expected panic. They got determination. Lyra spotted the first opportunity. A structural vent on the command ship had weakened under earlier attacks from the drones. It was small, a narrow opening that no alien algorithm would consider significant.
She signaled Kian.
Now, fire everything through the vent. Energy torpedoes shot from Kian's vessel, missiles guided by Mara's drones. They struck the vent precisely, breaching the alien ship's armor. An explosion rocked the vessel, sending fragments of metal into space. The alien commander's shields flickered, and Lyra saw the moment of hesitation. The first human eyes had caught their logic off guard. Seizing the moment, Lyra and her small fleet darted forward, weaving between energy blasts and debris, striking repeatedly at exposed systems. The alien command ship attempted to respond, but every move it made was reactive. Humans did not follow patterns. They adapted, shifted, and improvised with speed and courage that no machine could calculate. The battle raged for hours. Colony fleets joined in, striking at smaller alien vessels and creating confusion. Human ingenuity turned weaknesses into opportunities. Engineers aboard the human command stations devised last-minute countermeasures, hacking alien drones and redirecting them into the fleet. Lyra's cadets executed maneuvers she had taught them, their improvisation complementing the larger plan. Finally, the alien command ship faltered. Its energy shields collapsed, turrets went offline, and the core was exposed. Lyra maneuvered her vessel into position, careful to remain within range but avoid destruction.
All units, she said calmly, focus fire on the core. Precision, not power.
Hit the weak points we have found. The fleet unleashed a coordinated strike. Energy beams, missiles, and drones attacked simultaneously, exploiting every opening. The alien commander attempted to redirect forces, but humans had already adapted to anticipate countermeasures. The command ship shuddered under the relentless assault. Its defenses were failing, systems collapsing under the unpredictability and ingenuity of humanity. Lyra watched the core flicker, then destabilize. A final surge of energy built up inside the vessel. She pulled back her vessel at the last moment, signaling the fleet to do the same. The command ship exploded in a brilliant flash, fragments scattering across space. Silence followed, broken only by the soft hum of human vessels. Across the galaxy, humans cheered. Colonies watched transmissions from the battle unfold, inspired by the courage, ingenuity, and selflessness displayed by Lyra and the cadets. The hero archives updated automatically, inscribing every detail: the tactics, the improvisations, the courage under fire, the small actions that turned the tide. Lyra's name became synonymous with human resilience. Ren, Mara, and Kian floated beside her in zero gravity, their expressions a mixture of relief, awe, and triumph. "We did it," Ren whispered.
Lyra shook her head, smiling. No.
"They did it. All of us." Humanity did it. We survived because we adapted, because we trusted each other, because we refused to be predictable. That is what makes us strong. Mare nodded. "Do you think they'll ever attack again?" Lyra gazed at the remnants of the alien fleet, scattered and defeated. "Maybe, but we will be ready. Every colony, every fleet, every human who learns from this battle will be ready. We've proven something important. Humans cannot be controlled, cannot be predicted, and cannot be underestimated. So, our story, it's just beginning." Lyra's eyes softened.
Yes, and it will inspire every human who faces impossible odds.
Every person who thinks courage isn't enough. Every colony that doubts its strength. Our story shows that adaptability, courage, and heart can change the course of history across stars and planets. The fleet moved to repair damage and consolidate defenses, but Lyra's mind was already planning for the future. Colonies would rebuild, fleets would strengthen, cadets would train, and humanity would grow stronger. But most importantly, they had learned that even against overwhelming power, the human spirit could not be broken. It adapted. It endured. It triumphed. Across every colony, transmissions spread the story of the battle. Students studied the maneuvers. Cadets learned from Lyra's improvisation. Engineers dissected the tactics. The hero archives inscribed her actions permanently, a record of courage, ingenuity, and selflessness. Lyra's bravery became more than a legend. It became a lesson for every human who might one day face impossible odds. Lyra stood on the observation deck, watching the stars shimmer beyond the station. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, but humanity had shown it was not to be underestimated. She thought of Ren, Mara, and Kian, their growth and courage, and felt pride she had never allowed herself to feel before. Humans were capable of extraordinary things, not because they were perfect, but because they dared to act when all else failed. She turned to her cadets. "Rest tonight," she said softly. "Tomorrow we train. Tomorrow we ensure humanity is ready for anything. But tonight we remember that courage, ingenuity, and heart have no equal. Tonight, humanity celebrates." The cadets nodded, their eyes reflecting the stars and the spark of hope that Lyra had ignited. Across the galaxy, humanity watched, learned, and prepared for the future, inspired by a commander who had dragged cadets past flames, faced impossible odds, and proven that humans could not be predicted, controlled, or defeated. Lyra looked once more at the stars, feeling the weight and responsibility of her actions. She had saved lives, inspired colonies, and fought for humanity's future. But more than that, she had shown that one human's courage could ripple across galaxies, changing minds, inspiring hope, and reminding every human that heart, ingenuity, and bravery could turn even the darkest odds into triumph. And somewhere, far beyond the light of any star, humanity learned, adapted, and waited, ready to face the next challenge with the same courage and spirit that had carried Lyra and her cadets through fire, darkness, and the threat of extinction. The legend of their bravery would live on, inscribed forever in the hero archives, a testament to the indomitable human spirit.